Howdy, YouTube. Welcome to the Dave DY Show. This episode we will talk about mixed martial arts. Haven't had one of these in maybe a couple weeks. UFC Fight Night 145. No, that's coming up. So ESPN, UFC on ESPN occurred this weekend. Oddly, on a Sunday evening. I think this is an experimentation through ESPN. They're trying to find a time slot. If you recall, we had UFC on Fox. UFC on Fox started out with 3 or 4 main fight cards. It was on the regular Fox network channel. It was an hour or 2 hours long. This was a full UFC Fight Night format with early prelims, and even a pay-per-view and a main card event coming from Talking Stick Arena in Phoenix, Arizona. And it was on ESPN, UFC on ESPN, a non-charged, free UFC event. It wasn't on Fight Pass, it wasn't on Fight Plus, ESPN Plus, and it was not on cable, other than the sports cable, the sports channel, ESPN, whatever. So if you didn't have ESPN, you didn't see it. Whereas Fox is a pretty standard station that everybody has. And so when Fox showed when Fox showed UFC fight events, it was network television. But ESPN, it is not. So they've shown this, and Fox did it on weeknights. They did it on Tuesdays. They did it other evenings. ESPN's trying to find a time slot, and it seemed like Sunday night was the slot. I don't think you're going to have a very good draw on Sunday night. Maybe you will. Maybe that's a weeknight and they're trying to find a presence. But it would seem to me, with the amount of money for an agreement with UFC, with Zuffa, that they'd need a pretty big draw to fulfill the advertising, to fulfill the gate revenues at Talking Stick Arena, to fulfill whatever needed. And I don't know if a Sunday night event is going to do that. This was a big event. This was Francis the Predator Ngannou against Cain Velasquez. Cain Velasquez hasn't been in the octagon in a couple of years. He's had multiple injuries, knee injuries, leg injuries, some other things. So this was a big comeback fight for him. And anticipated. See if he had ring rust, see if he'd readdressed not only the physical injury aspects of his fighting prowess, but also the mental. He's had a number of tough bouts in the last 5 years, of which he's lost some, and it seems that he's lost some of the focus, drive, gusto for fighting. He's training at it's out in California. It's not American Top Team. It might be ATT. It's the fight club that Daniel Cormier trains at in California, in Southern California, and a number of other high-profile UFC fighters, male and female. Cain Velasquez is one of them. Daniel Cormier sought Cain Velasquez when he broke into the UFC a few years back, number of years now, because Cain was a big man and Daniel wanted to train with big men. Daniel was a heavyweight and he wanted to train with the best. He aligned himself with Cain Velasquez. They have a deep partnership. They have a deep friendship. After this fight, Daniel Cormier tweeted, "Cain Velasquez is still the man." And so that was the main event on this ESPN UFC fight card. The co-main was the Irish Dragon Paul Felder against James Vick, which is a strange co-main. James Vick has had a number of recent victories. He is not a top-notch fighter. I think he was ranked 10th coming into this fight. He's a top 10, barely. He's long and rangy, tall, long limbs. He's got good stand-up technique, not great. He's got good grappling, not great. He's got good ground submission, not great. He talks a big game. I think he'll never be top 5. Years ago when I first saw him, I would have known he would never be top 5 unless something radical occurred. He just doesn't have the fight IQ to attain that. When I say fight IQ, I mean the training skills, the learning skills, the octagon skills, and the depth of knowledge inside and outside the octagon to hit that elite level. And those are the 3 facets that a majority achieve their greatest success and top 5 success. Yet a number of folks have adequate or good fight acumen, ring acumen, knowledge, and they have exceptional physical traits. So they are exceptional physical athletes, and then you put good ability and mental learning and training ability on top of that, and they are exceptional. James Vick is neither of those, physically, nor skill-based, nor intellectually. And he'll never be more than what he is now. Paul Felder, I think, is on the down slope of his career. He's older. He is a broadcaster. He is I know he was a Fox UFC host, a good one at that. He's crisp. He's intelligent. He's to the point. He's well spoken. He's got good personality, good skills. He's a bit succinct and brief, but I like it. And he's got very good knowledge. He's not chipper and upbeat and sassy like Daniel Cormier, or overwhelmingly intellectual like Dominic Cruz. But he's still a very sound host and broadcaster. If he does color, if he does ringside, if he does studio work. He fought, and he looked like he had gone through an outstanding camp. He's a pasty Philadelphia Irish kid, and he looked shredded, fit, solid as a rock against James Vick. And he looked like that coming in, so you knew this was going to be a pretty decent fight. There were a number of other fights on the card. One of the early fights, the early prelim, was what you would have assumed was a barn burner. Renan Barão against Luke Saunders. Renan Barão, world-class Brazilian fighter, in recent years has taken a number of hits, a number of shots on the head, has lost something of his jaw, still has elite world-class level kicks, still has elite world-class level conditioning, cardio, and outstanding stand-up and deadly submissions, both standing, pressure on the cage, and especially on the ground. So, and he's from Brazil. I think he fights with Jose Aldo and Nova União. He came in, he didn't have any crazy style or hair. He usually shaves his head or puts a mohawk or something. He had his regular hair. He came in here. And Luke Saunders is a stocky, shorter, thick, tattooed, braided hair bruiser. Stands up and throws. And he's got good hands. And he's got great power. I think he's a southpaw. He's got great power in his left hand. Big, big power. One-hit knockout power if he hits you. And so this was an exciting fight. Saunders is not an up-and-comer. He's a middle of the career kind of guy. He's got ups and downs and wins, but he's young and he's still hungry. Renan Barão is clearly on the downslide, though much of the Brazilian legends are, and they continue to exist. They continue to fight. They continue to flourish. At what cost, I don't know. At their own sanity, at their own mental capacity. Who knows? They continue to show up in fight cards. So the individuals that run this corporation feel that they are cognizant, able, aware, and functioning enough in their mental capacity to come out and fight. So he was on the card. He's 34-8. Luke Saunders is 13-3. Cool hand Luke Saunders. And the first round went to Renan Barão. Came out kicking, came out throwing. Immediately, he's a fast attacker. He shows up. He'll feel you out quickly. He'll throw pepper and jabs, get the distance, and then start to move in. And he intermingles. He throws kicks, low kicks to the thigh or the calf now with brutal trauma. I mean, he throws kicks with brutal outcome. And you pick one, Renan Barão or Jose Aldo. They are equally nightmarish with their low kicks. They have good body kicks. They don't have as much high kick capabilities like some of our other Brazilian fighters. Rangier. They stay with the low kick to just destroy the knee, destroy the calf, destroy the quadricep. And often they'd throw into the meat of the thigh, the calf, of the quad, but they've now changed to hit the knee and to work on the calf, which seems to be even more effective these days. The calf just doesn't have the muscle mass, so it can't absorb the shots. So a lot of your leg attack kicking stand-up has evolved to low calf kicks, and they are devastating. You can take 3, 4, 5 of those from these elite kickers, and these guys have the ability where they tweak and twist the hips after they're loaded. So from their stance at an angle, the hip is turned back and loaded. And then they step and snap. And it's like your shin bone on your leg turns into a baseball bat. A baseball bat that you would hit someone with. And if you've seen the fights and watched the fights, the audio that comes from the shots on the calf, the meat, it's that smack. And it's brutal. When you hit the knee or you hit the calf, there's not as much meat, so on some occasions, or even the foot, it's more of a thud. The midsection, you get that snap also because you've got good meat in here. But on the lower kicks, you get that thud. It's almost like a bat hitting an object. And it's brutal. 3, 4, or 5 of those and you are immobile. You can no longer stand on that foot. You can no longer pressure onto that foot with a lead attack. And that lead attack will be anything. A stand-up throw where you have to load up on the front foot to then move in, or a kick. So it's completely debilitating, and it takes away a massive portion of the offensive attack of that fighter. It's brilliant technique, and it's relatively new, the last few years. Benson Henderson used to do weird variations of it with toe kicks to the calf and whatnot, but never a low kick to the calf. And it takes smaller effort. You don't have to lift the leg as high, so it's not as much of a tell. Renan Barão and Jose Aldo both have kicks that don't have a tell. If you watch many leg attackers, kickers, they have to load and they twitch, and you can tell by the way they position their lower body that they're moving in for a kick. And an expert like Joe Rogan or Dominic Cruz or any of these guys can tell you, oh look, they're loading on the kick. Renan Barão and Jose Aldo have a normal stance, they move in, and then they just snap it. And it is devastating. It's merciless. So that first round, Hennen was beating up Luke Saunders, and he was throwing good strikes because Hennen's a fairly good striker. He's got good stand-up technique. He's got good punches. He's not a Southie. He's a normal, and he's got a good right hand. I'm pretty sure. And the round one went to him. Second round came out, and Luke Saunders listened to his coaching. He listened to his corner. The corner said move forward, said throw down the middle, 1-2, of which Hennen Brow also. So here's one of the tricks in the UFC. You have to throw combinations. Single punch, single kick attackers rarely are successful. They may get shots in, but ultimately it's not enough to disrupt the flow of the fighter that's fighting them. They can recover, they can back up, they can escape, they can move vertically, horizontally, vertically, either or. And so you have to throw combinations, which is the foundation of the offensive attack in mixed martial arts. Stand up, low kicks, anything. If you're not submitting and you're not grinding against the cage, if you are an attacker and you're a striker, you have to throw multiple combinations. And when you intermingle kicks with punches, it is devastating because you can throw a kick and then come across 1-2 and disruptively destroys the fighter you're fighting. They block or they know a kick's coming, they react to that, and the next thing you know, there are blows coming to your head or your upper body or your midsection. Unbelievable. Hard to attain. It takes tons and tons of work. You have to be very skillful at balance. You have to be very fluid in your actions. But when you see great strikers that are fluid at that, they're brutal. And in their prime, they will destroy you. And it takes a very unique fighter to devise a plan that can shut that down or to make it ineffective. And oftentimes they are unsuccessful, but in rare occasions you also get strange techniques like Lyoto Machida or Wonderboy Thompson, who use their karate, and in playing a defensive type attack role, they lean back, stay out of range, throw in ones and twosies, and then wait for you to attack to effectively counterattack. And after they disrupt you with those counterattacks, where now you are no longer in your fluid attack mode, they move in with kicks, high kicks, front kicks. They move in with punches and blows, and they formulate an attack. But for the most part, normal fighters with normal attacks that are forward progressing, and you run into these guys that have the kicking and the striking, the punching capabilities, they are brutal to fight. It's a very high-level, effective, forward-moving attack mechanism. And these two, Hennen Barao and Jose Aldo, they're top-notch at it. Luke Saunders is a striker. He throws with mean intent in that left hand to knock you out. His coaches said move forward, move through those attacks, take the kicks, and then drop the 1-2. And for him, that is a jab right followed by the power left. Right down the middle, right down one. And he did that early in the second round, had immediate success, moved around a little with Barao, and then crushed him with a left hand right on the button. Knocked him down, pounced on him, hammer fist, or not hammer fist, had three insane aggressive, I think they were left hands. I don't know, right hands. They weren't left hands. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's a power puncher through his left hand on top. 3 for good measure. The fourth one was stopped by the referee. Barao was in la-la. He was out. So, a shocking fight as an early prelim. I don't ever think I would have seen Hennen Barao on your early fights that are barely televised, which breaks my heart because he is a Brazilian legend, one of the greatest of all time, had one of the greatest records in history with, 10 years like Jose Aldo, 8 years of undefeated prominence in his weight class, just destroying, annihilating, devouring opponents. And it seems like that's somewhat over. I don't know if it's his training. I don't know if it's his coaching. I don't know if it's his mental, his outlook right now, his morale, and his mental view in fighting. You got to have that killer instinct. You got to have that attitude. It seems like it's waned. whatever the case, he is not the fighter that he was, and it showed up with Luke Saunders. So that was the early prelims. There were no other early prelims of note. The preliminary cards, not much of note that I would even wish to talk about. Jimmy Rivera fought Aljamain Sterling, and Aljamain beat him up in a decision, a 3-round decision. Both good fighters. They're both mid-level, top 5, top 7, I think. Jimmy Rivera is older. He's waning. Aljamain Sterling seems to be a little more up and coming. And he decisioned him. He had more pep, more energy, so they gave him the decision. But then on the main card, some excellent fights. Andre Touchy-Feely ended up decisioning Miles Fury Jury, right? Decent fight. I don't know if it was notable in any way, shape, or form other than what you predicted. These guys stood and threw, and the fight went back and forth. They gave Andre Feely the decision. The Boo Birds came out and whatnot, but overall it was a decent fight. A huge welcoming into the UFC for Kron Gracie. Kron Gracie is the grandson of Helio and the son of Hodger. No, not Hodger. I can't remember. Not Helio. One of the great Gracies. One of Helio's kid, right? So, there's a billion fucking Gracies. So anyway, he is right now a toast of the globe on Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Gracie Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And my God, did he not disappoint. He fought Bruce Leroy Caceres. Bruce Leroy Caceres is a range fighter. He is a skinny, yet very fit featherweight. Not a lot of muscle. He uses technique, he uses strikes, he uses kicks, he uses elbows, any type of standing technique to attack. He does not have one-punch knockout power. He attacks at angles, he's creative, he retreats at angles, he moves in and out, he's got good footwork. He usually beats you slow and steady until you're dazed and then maybe knocks you out or wins a decision. A good fighter, not a great fighter, which is exactly why they put him against this relatively UFC unknown Kron Gracie. This guy is the top tier Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu submission artist. He is the end state. He is the master. And if he gets a hold of you and he wraps you up, and then you don't have great stand-up defense, and you don't have great cage defense, where you're wrapped up and there's pressure, you don't have hand control, you don't know how to load your hips, you don't know how to master, move your knees so that you're not getting a trip or you're not getting your weight moved, you're dead. This guy will take you down, and once you're down, and I don't know if it's comparable to my boy the Eagle, right? Khabib Nurmagomedov, who uses a constrictive style to ground and pound you, or choke you, or break your arm off and take it home, or whatever. The Gracie technique is more of polished body management with a singular goal of submitting. It's not striking, elbows, fists, it's submission. And it could be arm bars, it could be omoplatas, it could be rear naked chokes, it could be whatever the body position warrants. These guys are experts at the body triangle or the figure 4. They wrap it correctly. They pressure every move correctly. They position their body and manage their body with body control and distance and pressure on your body. top tier, non-gi, jiu-jitsu, submission, chokeout mofo. Tap you the hell out, make you go to sleep. And that's exactly what he did in round 1. In 2.5 minutes against my man, Bruce Leroy. And I had not seen Crone fighting. He showed his exemplary skill set. He wrapped Caceres up on the cage, stuck a leg in, kept him somewhat off balance, but wrapped him up python-like. And then Caceres fought for hand control, of course, which is critical. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsus always have great hand and wrist control. They have to, so that they can then manage your weight. And Bruce Leroy did the right thing. He broke the grip. He tried to remove Crone from the ability to hang on or manipulate his body and his weight in his direction. But ultimately, this dude, Crone put all of his weight on him and then just fell back. Took him down. And, it doesn't matter. Forward, backward. You don't need control. He had control, and he just needed him on the ground. And then he quickly swarmed with a figure 4, a waist lock. Put the right pressure correctly, loaded it beautifully, pinched off his midsection, and then worked on the choke out and choked him out in a matter of seconds. Worked one and then the other right under the chin, and then a couple times Bruce Leroy fought it, and then he just clamped down and shut off the windpipes. The windpipe shut him down. And it was exactly as everyone expected. This guy's top notch, and he proved it quickly. So, a fond welcome and a furious hurrah for Crone Gracie. Came in and crushed. So onward and upward for this dude in the featherweights. We'll see where he goes. He's on an upward trajectory. It will be good to see him in the top level fighting, where you've got individuals that aren't so easily managed standing and then taken down. There are exceptional featherweights that have skill sets on the feet and on the ground. So Crone's in for some outstanding competition here. That's exciting stuff right there. But again, it seems to be ESPN is keeping the featherweight weight class, and they're going to continue to pursue these high-level fights. So that's outstanding. Had a couple women fight. Cynthia Carvalho. Carvalho is Hispanic. I think she's Mexican and American Mexican, and she fought a local, Courtney Casey, who's from the Phoenix area. So she had the local crowd around her. She's a larger woman that has a pretty solid stand-up strike, punching offense. And Cavallo's just your all-around bruiser, brawler with good kicks, with good punching, and tough on the ground. Can choke you out, can ground and pound you. A smothering, strong female fighter. And these two mostly stood up. There wasn't a lot of takedown tries from Cavallo, and they stood up and threw, and for the most part, Cavallo outthrew Casey. The bigger fighter, which was surprising because I've seen Casey destroy the Karate Hottie and some other gals, just brutally beat them with her strikes. So this Cavallo gal definitely showed up at the strawweight, and it was an exciting 3 rounds of some throwing, busting up their faces, not bloody messes, but busting up faces and great kicks. Casey did a great job doing the low kick, calf kick, almost took Cavallo out. Cavallo couldn't put pressure on the front leg. Great fight, decision to Cavallo. All 3 judges, 29-28 and 130-27 or something. And then, as I said, the co-main, which was the Irish Dragon Felder against James Vick. It was a good fight, but it showed you these two fighters. It showed you that James Vick will never be a top fighter, top-level fighter, top 5. He'll be top 7, 8, 9, 10 through 15. And Paul Felder is no longer in the extreme prime of his fight game, and he's got other responsibilities now. Still a great fight. He's still a bruiser. He still threw some punches. He's still in sick shape. Still got good technique, but it was a decision where Felder beat him up. Vic got some good kicks and punches in. Not a barn burner, not a hugely exciting fight, but a great fight with stand-up technique and some good striking over 3 full rounds where both guys got their heads beat in a little. And ultimately, Felder came out on top. He was the one with the pressure. He pushed Vic forward. Vic showed a few glimmers of light with some good shots and whatnot. He was the longer, rangier fighter. And Felder's plan coming into this fight was to allow Vic to throw down on him, and then Felder was going to come over with a looping right, which he did. And he hit Vic a number of times and knocked him down a number of times. Left some welts on his head, bloodied his eyeball up. Looks like he popped some blood vessels, so Vic's eye went red. And ultimately, that was the decision. He won. And then you had the main event. The hype around Francis Ngannou working at the Performance Institute in Las Vegas, coming from Africa, where his father was a street fighter, with video of the brawls. Francis, a street fighter, brutal bouts, fist fights in the streets, came over, annihilated a number of fighters with brutal, crushing, deadly power for heavyweights. Big, giant men. 230, 40, 50-pound men. Ngannou is a bull of a man. Cain Velasquez, a monster of a man. And a number of fights on both of these gentlemen's cards in the past, the recent past, that caused question. Francis Ngannou against the Black Beast, Derek Lewis. 3 rounds of dancing around. It's one of the worst fights in heavyweight history. No touching. Cain Velasquez losses and injuries in recent years. Lack of participation in 2 years while he rehabbed and trained. No longer really the champion that he was 5 or 6 or whatever years ago. Long diminished since Stipe has taken reign, and now Daniel Cormier is the champ, or was the champ. So it was an exciting thing to see where Cain Velasquez was going to come from this, if his career was going to take hold again. He stated openly, this is it. He has to prove himself in this fight, or his thoughts of retiring. And when a fighter starts to mention that, they don't have the skill set, they don't have the acumen, they don't have the training, they don't have the headset, the mindset of going out every day and killing it. Dominic Cruz had multiple knee failures, multiple, where he had to sit out for a year, go through an excruciatingly brutal and extensive surgery, rehab that, get back into control and order, get back into training, validate that knee was fixed, be able to put pressure on it, start to train full bore, and then fight. He did that over a number of years, 3, 4, 5 years, and he always had brutal tenacity. He was audacious, he had audacity, he had attitude, he still disrespected Team Alpha Male, the gents, Cody Garbrandt, TJ Dillashaw, all these, Uriah Faber, like they were punks, like he owned them, all the while commentating, color commentator, or a ringside commentator, or a studio commentator. Never gave up, and you saw that fire. Cain Velasquez has been missing that, and he stated that he needed a great performance in this fight for him to continue, for him to have the gusto, and it didn't come. Francis Ngannou came out, engaged with Cain. Cain did a few in and outs, felt and saw the power of Ngannou, which he watched in tape, is well known. Ngannou is one of the monsters of the punching ball in the Performance Institute, with some of the highest punching force on the earth. And then Cain went in for a takedown, a double leg, into the midsection, wrapping both arms around the legs, the upper thighs. And quickly, Francis pounded him in the head a couple times. Cain's knee seemingly went out, his left knee that he'd had surgery on looked like it popped. Ngannou smashed him on the way down and then on the ground, and it was over. And clearly, in standing up and walking, it seemed like Cain had some knee issues. and had popped his knee. I did not watch the follow-up interview. I don't know what the statements thereafter were. 26-second knockout, heavyweight knockout by Francis Ngannou. So there was no fight at all. So I think this is the end of the career for Cain Velasquez. It probably should be, especially if he had a major knee injury. Rehab that, get it back to healthy, and then coach and train in your gym. Take another role. I don't think I know he's not a great speaker. He's not a bad speaker. He's not a great speaker. I don't think he's got a position as a heavyweight commentator in the industry like a Chael Sonnen or some of these other larger guys, the Daniel Cormier, who is a great talker, great personality, sound in front of the camera, behind the camera, great fight acumen, skill and knowledge in explaining it to the layman. That is not Cain Velasquez. So I think his career will focus in a local manner on training and teaching and coaching, and I think that's fine. I don't think there's any issue to that. I think he's got good money, I would hope. From his championships, he made quite a bucket, quite a boatload. He had a number of fights at the top when the UFC was paying well. $500,000, $1 million fight payouts based on the draw, and he had some great draws, some big fights with Junior Dos Santos and other folks. So I would expect he's got good money, he's got a good lifestyle, and he can continue to do that. Maybe he made some good investments. I think he's done in the fight game. And I think this gives nothing but great confidence to Francis Ngannou. I will tell you this, watching the 26 seconds, Francis Ngannou still suffers dramatically in striking technique. While his power is ferocious, his technique is sorely lacking. Looping, ineffective, telegraphed shots, which when you watch the Stipe Miocic fight against Francis Ngannou, Stipe preyed on that as the more intellectual, better trained, better cage knowledge and interaction, much deeper expertise and deep what the hell am I trying to say? His multiple fights in the octagon clearly showed that he had greater presence and calm and ability than my man Francis, and he beat him silly over 3 rounds. Pounded his face in, dodged all the big shots, grappled with him and hung on, and tired him out, and then beat him, even though Stipe took some shots. Cain didn't look like he had the heavy-duty chin, which, of course, ring rust. But yeah, it was a tough fight. It was a tough fight for everyone, for the people watching, for Cain Velasquez, and a great fight for Francis Ngannou. So we'll see where he goes from there. We'll see where the heavyweight class goes from there. Francis Ngannou against Daniel Cormier? Yeah, I don't think there'd be much of a fight there either. I think Daniel would intellectually and strategically and other facets dominate Francis. However, there's always that likelihood that Francis gets a shot on you. And man, when those monstrous hands, giant biceps and forearms and triceps connect with you, you are gonna feel it. That takes a chink away from your lifetime fight capability, I'll tell you that. You lose a little bit of the nerve behind your chin. So, all in all, a great fight night. Thoroughly enjoyable, great stuff, and a free one. So, I don't know if you watched it. I watched it. It went on late. It was a good one, and it sets up some great fights in the future. So, comment, like, subscribe, share. I hope you enjoyed it. And onward and upward, looks for another MMA talk installment here sometime in the future. We've got some big fights March 2nd coming up, some big fights. So we got some fireworks in the near future here, and I'll talk about those. Dave DUI Show, thanks for listening. Out.